Hey, thank you so much for joining me in my little own corner of the world, right here from the suburban part of the ATL. I like to just simply say, hey, from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm actually 22, 23 miles north of the actual downtown, but that doesn't matter. It's still the ATL, and there's so much talent here. But today I'm speaking with somebody from the Boston, Massachusetts area, which has a ton of its own talent, as history has shown. This one is truly incredible because he's just not an artist, he's a good marketer. And when you got both, you can go really far in this business. Mark Roberge, who is from the band Prospect Hill, has been apparently drumming with them since 1998. We're almost at 30 years now with that. But along the way, he's learned how to get into marketing, and he explains how he started this whole company off there on the side, helping people marketing where they are in their careers and in really developing them and getting them out there on social media, and talks about getting them into merchandising, helps them out with all of that. I really urge you to listen to this if you're really into wanting to expand your horizons, take it up a few more notches. This guy knows his stuff. I'm telling you, he's a good talker and he's amazing. Really, really talented guy. Mark Roberge right here on TFTC. And I'll talk with you on the other side of this thing. Good morning. How you doing?
Morning, Robert. How are you?
Good, good. Where are you speaking from today?
I north of Boston in a town called Methuen, well, city now.
Cool, cool. So you're joining me today talking about your venture for how you help artists really compete in the digital age. When did this start?
I mean, I guess that's kind of a loaded question because, like, this has kind of been a lifelong journey. I've been building systems and strategies my whole life.
Yeah.
Ultimately, since I was, coming out of high school and I had my own band and I was figuring out ways to promote my own band, and so ultimately, everything that I've created is kind of like a lifetime of strategies and knowledge that I've acquired over the years of trying to help myself and my own band. And then ultimately, I started an agency in 2016, um, where I started writing and producing for other artists. I came off the road as a touring musician at the time. I needed a break. And so I started writing and producing for a number of artists, and with my business partner Sean Lichtenstein, who's the songwriter and guitar player for a band called Lansdowne. And we were making all these great records and we were producing content for them, but then there was no strategy on the release. We were seeing that there was basically a void in that element where there was no real guidance, and we were hiring all these different agencies to help, and we were trying all these different strategies and nothing was really seeming to work, and everybody that we hired just seemed to drop the ball. And so that was kind of where we were like, there needs to be a solution for this, right? And so over the years since 2016, we started accumulating different strategies that we knew worked and testing things and spending money on certain strategies by working with other people. And then ultimately we created, strategies that we knew were the most efficient way to spend your dollar as an independent artist to acquire like a real fan. Our whole, I guess, motto is like finding a person that actually cares about your music and then connecting with them and turning them into a super fan is really more valuable than just numbers on your streaming or your numbers on your YouTube or your numbers on your Instagram. It's really about that, especially as an independent artist, your first 1,000 real fans that you can communicate with directly are going to become your army. So that's really where we pointed all of our efforts. So 2 years ago, ultimately, if I fast forward all of this, is where we started building FanFlowy and really creating Make Our Music, where we were, I started using some automation systems and started using those to basically take my strategies and add them into a system that could be scaled ultimately, really, so that an artist can focus on writing music and recording and performing so that they didn't have to be so deep into what we were doing, because we would, ultimately it's a lot of work. I mean, this industry is so much you have to do now, more than just making music. So that's really ultimately how it all kind of came about.
Are you using AI these days to really help you along with this and help you analyze getting numbers for all these kind of artists and really get that fan base going?
Yeah, I mean, AI does play a massive part in this. And it's funny because we started building this like right at the beginning of the AI movement. And so ultimately we were kind of creating our own AI in regards to like if this, then that type of scenarios. And then ultimately now AI has, enhanced the ability of how we can grow this and scale this. And, ultimately, there's layers to what we're building. And now with AI, it's just moving so much faster.
How has it really changed since you started doing this? Because this is constantly evolving. Everything in the digital age is constantly like, not even just like every year. It just seems like every other month or something.
Every week.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, no,
constant.
it's amazing. It's like at first, we would see that there was like, some hope there on maybe, it could do this, solve this problem for us, and maybe it could help, and we would test it and we'd be like, nope, still not there yet. Still not there yet. And then all of a sudden now it's kind of switched where it's like, oh, it's there. Now we can do this thing for us. Now we can do this. And so now we're starting to see that it's allowing our workflow to be, a lot faster and more efficient in regards to how we're building and creating these things and testing things as well. So that's what's nice. It's at first it was like, maybe it can do this, and then it'd be like, it's not ready yet. It's not ready. And now we're seeing it. It's kind of off to the races at the moment.
Yeah, it really is. It's just a constantly evolving kind of thing. So, as yourself, like let's say somebody comes and they have a wonderful album. How do you market that thing? Because like even legacy artists are like in the dark about doing that, and some have like even stopped doing complete total full albums. Maybe a single will come out here or there. They come out with a full album. Somebody comes to you and says, "How do I get this thing out there? How do I end up being like everywhere?" Because you got to be everywhere for everybody to really build that fan base.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, you got to look at it in two ways, right? You have, especially if you're a legacy artist, but even if you're a brand new artist, right? There's two ways. Like, you have to look at your existing fan base, right? You have existing audience, and then you need cold audience. You need to start driving in new audience all day, every day. That's that now, being exposed to you for the first time, right? So those are two different strategies, but they ultimately will end up in the same place when you get them all together. So ultimately, you need to have systems and processes in place to nurture them, but also some type of like fan magnet that will ultimately drive them all in. So initial, you know, I guess touch point is like usually, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all that, putting content out, right? But then from there, funneling them into an email text message list where then now you can continue to speak to them and nurture them and get them to take the actions, right? Um, but then on top of that, then there's the paid side where you can run ads to then hit your existing audience because you can ensure now that they're all going to see the ad for the new album or the new single, right? So you want to get them to understand that it's out because we all know that the social media platforms are gating you. They're not allowing your all of your fans or followers to see your content when you put it out. So the only way to ensure that they do is to put out an advertising. So the first thing I do is with a brand new artist that we're working with that has existing fan bases, we want to run an ad to all of their existing fans so that we can get them into a funnel. So that now we have the ability to reach them and we don't need to pay Facebook or Instagram again to contact them. So we run an ad that says, "Hey, join our fan list. These are the perks you're going to get out of it. If you want to be part of our community, here it is. Sign up at the link below." And then we get their name, their phone number, their email, their location, and preferred streaming platform. And then we build out automated emails and text messages and DMs to now then speak to them for that artist. So then from there, we capture them. So now we have them. So when we have a new release coming out, we could just fire it off through text message and email through an automation system. And typically, we have a automated release flow for new releases to that existing audience and ones that are coming in that will notify them of the release on initial announcement with a forever pre-save built in. And then from there, the week before, the day before the release, and then the day of the release. And then a week after the release, thanking them for making it successful and then, encouraging them to continue to stream it. And then from there, as new audiences coming in, they're being fed into this funnel. And then even after that release is out, during that release cycle, any new audience that we're driving in through these ads are now going to get exposed to that single. So now it's continuing to grow. So it's not just hitting that existing audience once and then it's gone. We're making sure that we're driving in new fans all day, every day, and then they're getting into this funnel and they're being exposed to that new release, and they're taking those actions that are needed to then trigger algorithms across the DSPs to then further the promotion of your record.
That's really absolutely incredible. And you have like basically you have like a handbook for, suggestions for people who want to get into doing this.
Well, ultimately, we have a book that we put out, right? The Indie Artist Compass that Sean and I
Right.
wrote. That's details our strategies and everything we've done to get to where we are currently in the industry, with our own projects and projects that we've consulted for and managed and been a part of. And ultimately, you can take every strategy we've built that is inside of our platform called FanFlowy, and you could do them manually. Like you can take every single thing that we've created and do it manually. Or you can sign up and use FanFlowy, and now it's going to be automated. Because the thing is, I coach a lot of artists into using these strategies before they have, they before we even had FanFlowy. And one of the things that led me to building FanFlowy was they would start doing it and they would be like, oh my God, this is working. But this is so much work. It's taken so much time from me. And so that was why I really built FanFlowy. That was the motivator behind me going, okay, I got to build out automations because the strategy is working. And now the problem isn't, hey, there's nobody listening to my music. There's nobody interacting with me. The problem became this is overwhelming and I can't keep up with the DMs. I can't keep up with the communication. So I was like, okay, let's fix that problem. So that's what really led to me building out some of these automation systems, then which ultimately gave birth to FanFlowy.
Do you help artists with the monetization? Because I always hear like they get like a hay penny for every play on something like Spotify. Are there suggestions or ways that they could find better ways to monetize just through internet and that obviously they make a lot of the money, performing live. That's
Of
always the big
course.
suggestion. But, getting on Spotify, these platforms, even the big artists who've been around a while complain like, hey, I ain't getting paid here. Do you have suggestions? You got so much experience working in the music biz, and that's changed immensely. Say, do you have like basically a strategy for them to say, hey, look, I could make some serious money on Pandora, Spotify, all these other platforms?
Well, there's multiple ways. So you got to look at, the business as a whole in regards to multiple revenue streams, right? So you just mentioned a few of them, right? So one of the things we build out is a merchandise funnel. So every single new fan that we're driving into this funnel is now going to get an offer, right? They're going to get an offer on a you know, low sale ticketed item, whether it's a fan pack or it's a cheap t-shirt or something like that to get them in. And it's usually like a free item that we say with free with shipping, right? So then from there, ultimately, the first initial sale to that fan might only net the artist like $2, right? But and usually for every 100 fans we get in, we get about 8 to 15 sales, somewhere in between there, right? So the first initial offer, you're only making about $2. But what you did was you just identified somebody that was just found you and now is willing to spend money on you within 2 days. Right. So then now you go, okay, this is a buyer. This is a real fan that now I can nurture and get them to buy more. So, that's something that's an indicator. But even in that one merch flow, when they go to check out, we offer them a secondary item and then a third item. So then we start to see a percentage of those people that come in and buy that first item will buy the second item and buy the third item. So now you actually have a revenue stream of digital merch, right? So like your merchandise store with print on demand, maybe a hat, hoodie, all that stuff starts selling. If you have CDs, they sell. It's actually surprising. They sell really well because they're almost like a collectible item now. And then obviously vinyl, we all know that sells very well too. So if you have those two items, and now we have the ability to do these items on print on demand for a lot of our artists that obviously don't have the capital to buy stock in these items. So now we can get them printed on demand and shipped for them. So that's one revenue stream. And then once you identify that they're a buyer, then you can nurture them into buying more items throughout the year. So you're putting out different merch bundles, and you know that those are the people that are, most likely going to buy. So then now you can continue to nurture them and give them offers throughout the year. So that's one revenue stream that we open up and create that most artists are surprised within, a month of how many sales they make because they went from zero to now actually having sales, right? So that's one piece. And then from there, as you continue to put out, releases, my biggest piece of advice is to put out a song every 5 to 8 weeks if you can, right? And so as that continues to compound and now your audience grows and your followers grow on Spotify, because that's one of the call to actions, we're putting this out of our system all day, every day to these people that are coming in. So your follower count grows. So then now your release radar grows, which is the algorithmic initial playlist for when you put out a release. So that shows all of those fans your new release. So as that grows, then the ratio of how many people see it on your initial 4 weeks, ultimately it stays in there, will start to grow. So then Spotify will identify that your audience is growing, and then it'll also start to see if that song is doing well with inside of that, and then put it into radio, which is their other algorithmic playlist. And if it does well enough there and the popularity score goes up on your single, they'll add it to Discover Weekly. And now, if you can trigger this, then it starts to be added into other algorithmic playlists. And then now Spotify essentially will become your promoter. So now your catalog starts to stack and ultimately to grow. So once you hit about 30 songs to 50 songs inside of this ecosystem that's continuously adding into this algorithm, it starts to make money. So now you actually have a system in place that's, you know, continuously growing on that side of it, but now you're actually generating revenue. We have artists that we work with that are, just off of their streaming are making, six figures annually, which is pretty amazing independently. And the problem with the bigger artists that are complaining about not seeing money from their Spotify streams, if they didn't have a label in between them and the streams, they would be making millions. The problem is they have terrible deals, so they're only seeing a percentage of those sales. So that's the other thing too. So their complaints are a little different. They need to be complaining about the deal that they have set in, place that is with the label that's taking the majority of that cash.
Ah, so the label's actually getting involved and they're taking it, so then they're complaining about not seeing it. That's very interesting. So if somebody comes out with an album, do you suggest, hey, release, 5 singles between 5 and 8 weeks to really get this going? It seems like the power of the single and getting it out there and really promoting it is what puts the money in their pocket. And
Well,
yeah.
yes, yeah, you're right. So ultimately, it's really not about the money in the pocket on the single. It's just about building the momentum so that your audience grows in between. Because you got to think of like that single is monumental for you to promote around, and like everything's about the singles market right now because now you can put a ton of content on across social media platforms around it. And if you just put out an album before you have a big audience, you're kind of just, blowing it all on one, on a body of work, and you're not putting a focus on each one of these singles to then ensure that the next single has a larger audience. And then it's like a ladder. And if you just kind of throw them out there, you don't have the ability to climb that ladder of audience to then trickle out that algorithm properly. Um, and that's one of the things. It's like if you don't have the demand for an album yet, do not put it out. You have, you know, the thing is there's so much music out there, right? And so people don't really care, right? Unless they really love you. So as a new artist, your job is to get them to really love you and get them and build that over time. So there's a lot of people that love you. And if you just put it out one album, it's kind of like I see it all the time. That goes on deaf ears because there was no audience waiting for it.
Ah, yeah, yeah, and merch is a big thing too, like you were mentioning. So with merch, how do you coordinate that? Is there a type of service where you're coordinating with them so you can like actually physically ship this stuff out? How does that chain work?
Yeah, so ultimately, the first thing is we identify if an artist has anything physical on hand that they want to liquidate. And if they don't, which is fine. Well, I mean, if they do, then we'll build it into the system and start selling those items right away inside of the funnel and on their website that we build. So that's another thing too, is once we create your FanFlowy account, it actually builds you a beautiful website with the front end and back end all connected. And you can use it and we can, basically swap your domain out if you want, or you can continue to have your own website with this one as a secondary one. It doesn't matter either way, but it gets built either way. It's just one of those things that I was like, hey, we're getting all their information. Everything's getting created. Can the AI just create it? So that's kind of how we ended up setting it up. Um, and then so from there, if, they, depending on what they're going to offer, right? If for a fan pack, we have vendors that we, for like signed, photos, you just get them at Staples. For like a guitar pick, we have vendors for that, or magnets or stickers or like a little thing. So our fan pack initially is some like a number of little items that we offer for like 9.99 typically to a fan. And then there's a whole shipping system that's built inside of FanFlowy that makes it very easy to ship for that item, right? And then every other item we can do print on demand for like the t-shirts and the hats and the hoodies, even water bottles, mugs, everything like that. So that's built in through, we have an API integration with Printful. So then from there, if they order it off the site or they order it through the funnel, it gets printed and shipped for the artist. So the artist doesn't touch anything. They just take their money.
Yeah, this is a full-time job for you, basically, even though AI and those kind of tools really help with that. But it just seems to me like, wow, that really frees up the artist as well. How do you market yourself out there saying, hey, I'm here and I can help you? Are you on social media constantly advertising? How does that work for you to bring people in and make and get more clients? And how many clients do you have?
So at the moment, we have just, I believe, just over 100 artists on subscription currently. And so a lot of it has been word of mouth, a lot of affiliates. We've been around a long time, so we have a lot of friends in the industry. We have, producers we work with that then finish a record or finish a single and then suggest, hey, go work with Mark and his team. We have other agencies that are doing similar things, but not exactly what we're doing. So then they will bring them over to us when they need what we offer, right? So they were a suggestion to them and their affiliates at that level. And then we have ad systems, like the same ad systems we build for our artists, like we build for ourselves. So then we have ad systems that basically market what we're doing and then drive people in, and then we have them fill out a form. And if they qualify, because we don't take on every artist, because my thing is I'm truthful with artists, right? So I want to help. I can help everybody. I can get on a call with somebody, and in a 5-minute call, I can help them and advance them. And my thing is, if I'm happy to get on a call with anybody, but the thing is, I'm not able to work with everybody at that level with FanFlowy because they just might not be ready because their songs might not be there yet. And so, like, that's one of the things that we will identify. And if they're not ready for it, then we give them the advice and the connection to go do the next thing. So I'm happy to always help them and advance them. They just might not be ready to work with us yet. And then, I'll plug them into somebody in my network that can help them, whether it's another producer or a songwriter or another content team or a videographer, someone like we have all that built in house too as well. But we can't take everything on. There's so many of us that, there's so much time in the day, right? So on the production front or the songwriting front or the video production front, if that's what they need in order to be successful with us, I hold them there for now. I say, hey, listen, you got to go get the music produced better. It's not competitive. Or you need to get your content worked out. It's not going to actually convert cold audience to fans. We already know this, right? So I don't, I never want to take somebody on that's not ready, but I also don't want to like turn them away and say, hey, sorry, there's nothing we can do. At least I can give them something to then help.
Yeah, yeah. And there is the importance still of music videos. And you obviously you've been in the business a minute here, so you remember the traditional MTV model, which is totally gone now. But that's important too. How do you hook up people? And a lot of music artists are like, oh God, I gotta make a video on top of all this other stuff. How do you suggest and then hook them up with like a video director or a company that could help them actually produce music videos and promote them and then tell them where to put those music videos?
Well, we actually, so I own a video production company as well. So that's like one of the things I've been doing for years. I've produced over 100 music videos
Hmm.
of independent artists up to major label artists, right? And so we have a whole team for that ultimately. And like the focus right now is, yes, music videos are great and they're awesome, especially if the artist has a budget for it and it makes sense. But ultimately, like what I would see is if on a limited budget, if they only are able to make, say reels with their phone for their song, it's more valuable at the moment than a music video. A music video can be cool, especially if it's built and written with the concept of a video in mind. There's a lot of like artists we work with, like, Massive Man. I've worked with Joyner Lucas, and these guys are hip hop artists that are writing songs with the visual in mind. So then that music video is actually a part of that whole project and is needed. And then there's rock artists that are just like writing these, cool rock songs that just need some type of performance piece to hook people. And those could just be reels that they're shooting with their iPhone. So it's really all dependent on the artist and what the songs are. And that's another thing too, is like, even though I own a video production company, I'm not going to always suggest spending money on a music video based off of what their budget is and what their needs are, right? I want to make sure that I'm guiding them in the right way.
Yeah, and something like YouTube Shorts or TikTok or any one of those, does one or the other generate more revenue? Uh, do they generate any meaningful revenue, really? It's I would imagine YouTube Shorts is pretty good as far as generating the numbers for an artist.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately on a revenue side, they're not going to be a game changer because the volume of subscribers isn't there to trigger that amount of viewership and duration, like viewer duration time on YouTube. So especially on this artist that's just starting out. But ultimately on TikTok, which is nice, and we're seeing this, is there's basically a correspondence of how many views you get on TikTok to then how many streams you see on Spotify. So there's some relativity there in regards to, like, it almost looks like there's like a 4 to 7% view to stream ratio, which is pretty good. So that there's a way that a formula if you focus on putting out consistent content on TikTok, and then you get some user generated content with other pages and influencers using your music in their videos, that starts to create an ecosystem of how many views are now being seen with your song on it. And then those will correlate to higher streams on Spotify. So that's a pretty good piece right there. So putting out consistent content and putting out those reels with your songs on it and getting other um, pages to then use your song as well are pretty valuable over time to then increase the streams on your song, even if it doesn't go viral. But it's a 4% at the minimum, it seems to work.
So somebody puts a clip on TikTok. Do they have, can they just click the link to wherever they go on Spotify, and that's maybe where you see the relationship there? Is there a
No,
good,
not entirely. I mean, it's just the it seems like the audience that's on TikTok is just savvy enough. I mean, it's probably an age thing, right? Where
yeah.
they know to just go and search it, and they're using Spotify anyway. So that's a really good way to see that correlation. This is how I view it as. I think that's really why we're seeing that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's just constant. What would you suggest for an artist? Should they post every day content on all the socials and constantly update the website? What would you recommend as far as how much they need to be out there every single day?
Well, I in an ideal situation, I would be posting daily, right?
Yeah.
And the website will get updated automatically if you have things set up. If you have a FanFlowy website, it automatically updates every day. Or not every day. It updates as you have put new releases out and as you update shows. So those two things automatically update and your merchandise store. So those will automatically always update, which is nice about a FanFlowy store if you have it. If you're updating your website if you don't have FanFlowy, then it just makes sure that you have your shows updated constantly and you have your new release that you're focused on. Those are the two big pieces. And then obviously if your merchandise store is up there, make sure you're updating that. But in regards to social media, there's this debate on like, can you overpost? And I don't believe you can anymore because your audience is not seeing every post that's being put out. And now you have the ability, especially on Meta, to basically test a post and they'll show it to new audience and not show it to anybody that's following you. So you can do that too. That's a new feature, which is really cool. So then if it gains traction, then you can add it to your profile and show it to your audience. So that's a new one that's really nice. And then TikTok's algorithm is just showing it to new audience all the time. So like you know, there's no limit to how much content you can put out on TikTok, I believe, where you're going to exhaust your base because your base really isn't seeing it all the time. So the more the better, right? And at a minimum, I'd say 3 to 5 times a week minimum of posting. But if you could put out more than one daily, go for it.
Yeah. Is there a time of day where somebody should be releasing a post on TikTok, Facebook, any of those, Instagram?
Yeah, I think for the initial grab, at the highest viewership, it's like based off whatever your stats are telling you your audience is there. But like I said, it's not really matter about your audience. It's really about the general audience and ultimately. So it's like you got to look at like when are the people that you're trying to get to, when are they on lunch at work and when are they home and settled in, right? So that's when they're going to be the most attentive to what's happening. And ideally if it gets into the algorithm, it's going to kind of be showed throughout all day and every day to all new audience anyway. But that's what I would suggest is making sure that and because like for instance, you know in the United States right now, obviously East Coast is about, for lunchtime it's 12. And then, when they get home, it's between, 5 and 7, right? So, but if you're trying to attack the West Coast, then it's a different time zone. And then if it's, I just got back off a European tour and I want to ensure that the German fans are seeing things and that's a different time. So just kind of be aware of when in that open time would sit, and, when they're at lunch or when they're going to be at home is when I've noticed that those are the best times to post.
And yet you have time to tour and you are still creating music. How is that going? How do you balance those two? You're into a really heavy marketing thing here, and yet here's your creative side, working and touring and producing new music on your own.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot, so it's like my life is very busy. I have a family. I when I'm home, I train jujitsu and compete in jujitsu. So that's like another thing on top of that. So and then in between there, we're writing and we're producing music and then we're playing shows and rehearsing and touring. So there's a lot of demand on my life right now. So it's pretty busy. I just manage it. And, the thing about my team and I is like our full-time job is working with artists, is, building out FanFlowy, is, consulting with management teams and labels. So that's what we work like ultimately 9 to 5. And then everything after 5 is everything else for me in life. And then obviously when I'm on tour, I adjust that schedule a bit, but I'm still available. I'm still working out of the tour bus. I'm still taking calls. I'm still doing Zoom calls, and whether it's in the bus or I'm in the green room.
Yeah, that's fascinating because so many artists are just like, I'm just about creating the music. And these days, if you want to get anywhere, that is true. You have got to be everywhere. And one artist whose legacy that really impressed me is the team that works with Paul McCartney. It's just I've been somewhat impressed. How do you feel about that with his new album being out there? There's like 27 different pressings of the vinyl. They got all kinds of merch going on. I'm really kind of fascinated by that. These legacy guys, I know they have top-notch teams. How do you feel about these guys who are out there doing that?
It's funny because we've been approached by some legacy artists in regards to, setting up the infrastructure for them that we built, right? It wasn't Paul McCartney's team, but other artists that are, at a similar level. Um, and it's funny because some of them don't have any infrastructure, don't have the team that's forward thinking, like you just mentioned with Paul McCartney. And so that's unfortunate. But the ones that do, they understand that there's a fan base that is so large, and there's super fans at great length, and there's ways to then give them, those fans, the ability to purchase things that they want, right? And I think that's like one of the things a lot of artists don't realize is if you don't give the ability to purchase things or give them the offer, they're not gonna. So there's no way you're gonna make a sale if it doesn't exist, right? So what you're seeing with these legacy artists is they're creating like so many different products for all different sorts, because there's artists, these legacy artists have fans that are really young because their parents turned them on to them, and then obviously the parents and the older. So there's so many, I guess, fan archetypes that they need to offer products to and give them the ability to buy, and they're doing a good job, is what I see.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by that, by somebody who's about to turn 84 years old and is out there not just with that merch and all of that, but like actually appearing in so many places, like your podcast, not even, I mean, also doing the traditional appearances as well, like your Tonight shows and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I'm really just impressed with that. So do you suggest for artists, hey, go on this podcast, hey, go over here, try to get your face out there as much as you can?
Oh, big time. Like my thing right now, like I believe PR is dead unless PR is actually plugging you into podcasts and making and setting you up as guests. Otherwise, I think it's a waste of money. So that's the first thing I tell every artist is like when they come to me and they're like, "Oh, well, this PR team approached me," and I'm like, what are they approaching you with? What is the service that they're offering?" And they'll be like, "Oh, well, they're going to put us on, try to plug us into these publications and these zines and these online." I'm like, dude, no one reads those. There's no real audience to those. If your publicist is going to get you on to a podcast where you're going to be able to then speak to that, host, and then basically get their audience, to learn about what you're doing, and that's great to me. And then on top of that, now you have a piece of content that you can kind of put on your socials that's free. It's a free piece of content that is now created from you being on that podcast that can now be, show more depth of you, because now you're speaking about maybe your background or about the record and the process. And those are awesome pieces of content for you to connect with your own fan base. So like my thing is I don't care about PR unless it's doing this is building basically, the podcast tour, I would say,
Yeah.
around that artist and their record or their release or their tour.
Yeah, it's got to go beyond just saying, "Hey, I'm a PR person." That term is like antiquated now. It's like what you're doing is fan flowy, getting people out there. It's so multifaceted. It's not just the way it used to be. It's funny how you mentioned zines. That was pretty big, probably when you were just getting into the music business. That
Yeah,
was massive. It even
yeah,
That term made it into a song in the late 90s. I think the Harvey Danger tune.
Oh, nice.
That's
Nice.
really cool. Well, I thank you so much for stopping by. I really, really appreciate it. And this is really fascinating. For artists to just get out there, it's not just about simply, writing your songs and getting your album or your singles out there. There's so much more to it, and it's a great service that you're providing.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot now, and that's my biggest thing is making sure that all of it is in one place. And so that's what we're accomplishing at the moment is ensuring that all of your royalty registration and all of your distribution and all of your fan marketing and all of your pub admin is eventually all going to be in one place. And that's what we're doing. So we've created, FanFlowy is the first tool. Then we have DistroFlowy that's now out, which is our distribution arm of this, right? It's like for us to compete with TuneCore, CD Baby, and DistroKid. And then we have PubFlowy, which is the other element we're working with. And as these all three items are created, they're all going to be combined into one place where that artist only has to worry about one platform because that's all I want. That's personally for myself is why I'm creating this because I'm so sick of working on multiple different platforms and registering this here, setting this up here, but like it all just needs to be in one place. We need to simplify everything for the artist in today's age because, like you said, there's so much that needs to get done. Let's put it all in one place, let it all work together as one. And that way the artist can get back to, focus on making music, creating content, and performing.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to all that. That's fantastic. Well, best wishes on all that and getting everything synergized and moving forward. And also, gosh, touring and doing jujitsu. That's any time for sleep is probably a challenge, I would think.
I'm a little tired right now. Yeah.
Get that good Boston coffee over there.
you,
Going
you
to the
know it.
then the North End there, that Italian neighborhood in the North End. I remember visiting there. It's so amazing. God, that food is just like out of
Oh,
this world.
it's great. It's great. It's great food.
Awesome. Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you so much,
Cheers.
Robin. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Take care. Bye bye.
Have a good day.
There's so much more to that. There's so much more to that. I mean, it's like to me, like it's a total science. It really, really is. Just speaking with him and just gaining that knowledge about how to use keywords to get yourself out there on social media and when you're posting stuff to YouTube and all the socials and getting out there on Spotify, Pandora, wherever you're at, and getting those numbers streaming worldwide. He does it all. He does it all. And really, honestly, I urge anybody to check him out and expand your horizons. Really an amazing artist too. It's tough. You're an artist, you're more right-brained and you're not thinking left-brained like marketing and the math and all that crap, the numbers. Holy crap. That's a challenge. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. I will have more great musical guests and people from the arts world beyond music as well as I trudge along here on this good old little podcast. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.